Hello, this is Miss McCauley, and this is Dividing Fractions by Fractions, Part 1.
Alright, so today we're going to be learning how to divide fractions by fractions. We've already worked with dividing fractions with whole numbers, and now we're going to take a closer look at when you have two fractions in your division problem. Make sure you have these notes loaded, as well as the Virtual Manipulatives app, as we'll be using that a lot. Okay, so first we need to review reciprocals. And I'm sure you can see from all of the flip-flops that we're going to be reviewing that I like to call reciprocals, refliprocals. You got it. And remember, we call them reciprocal refliprocals because we flip what's on the top and what's on the bottom of each number. So in each pair of these flip-flops, we're going to go ahead and review finding reciprocals. So let's say you're given the fraction 1/4. The reciprocal of 1/4 is 4 over 1 or 4. Remember, 4 divided by 1 is 4. See, we've simply switched which number we put on the top and which number we put on the bottom. Let's try another one. Let's say this time you start with the whole number. Remember, that whole number 5 can be written as 5 over 1. And then to find the reciprocal, again, we simply just flip. And our reciprocal is 1/5. Alright, let's try another one. Let's say you're given the fraction 2/3. The reciprocal would be 3/2. And you could simplify that to a mixed number if you wanted to. Another reciprocal. Let's say you were given the number 8, which remember is the same as 8 over 1. Flip that to become 1/8. Whoops, let me write that in a different color so you can see it better. There we go. Okay, got some cute heart flip-flops here. Let's say you were given a mixed number, 3 1/3. First, we need to change that to an improper fraction, and then we're going to flip it. So if we use MAD, 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 3 is 9, plus 1 more is 10. The denominator stays the same as 3. And then 10/3 flips to become 3/10. Let's try another one. Say you're given the fraction 4/5. The reciprocal is 5/4. Alright. Let's say you were given the number 9. Remember, the reciprocal is 1/9. So once you get comfortable with these, you can start doing more of them in your head. Let's say you were given the number 10. The reciprocal is 1/10. Let's say you were given the fraction 4/9. Oops, let me change that color again. The reciprocal would be 9/4. Okay, a couple more. Let's say you were given the the fraction 1/3. Reciprocal would be 3 over 1, which simplifies to 3. You were given the number 118. The reciprocal would be 1/118th. So even those big numbers scare you, they work the same way. Or if you were given the number, let's see, 2,104, the reciprocal would be 1/2104th. That's it. Okay, so now that we've reviewed reciprocals, we can move on to our work with dividing fractions by fractions. We're actually going to be learning two different methods here. One's going to be using a model using that Virtual Manipulative app, and the second method is going to be using an equation, very similar to our work when we divided whole numbers by fractions. So let's first review the steps for each method. When we're dividing fractions by fractions, for the first method using a model, which remember that means we're representing the fraction so we can see what we're doing, first step is going to be to model the first fraction. which remember that first fraction is called the, that's right, the dividend. Okay? Once we've modeled that first fraction, the next thing we have to do is we have to see how many times the second fraction fits into the first. And that will make more sense once we start doing it. So how many times the second fraction, which remember is the divisor, fits into the first fraction. And however many times it fits is our quotient. It's as simple as that. Okay, now with method 2, using an equation, step 1 is we need to make sure any whole numbers are written over 1 and any mixed numbers are written as improper fractions. So let's write that down. So make sure any whole numbers are written as fractions and mixed numbers are written as improper fractions. Once we've ensured that that's true, the second step is to find the reciprocal of the second fraction and change our division problem to multiplication. So again, change to multiplication and find the reciprocal of the second fraction. And then our third and final step is to multiply, like you've already learned how to do. Okay, so now that we've learned the basic steps for each method, let's give our first problem a try. So our first example is 3/4 divided by 1/4. And we're going to start by using method 1, using a model. Remember, our first step is to model our first fraction, which in this case is 3/4. So I'm going to flip on over to the virtual manipulatives, and you should do the same. And we're going to go ahead, and I'm going to first just write down that our problem is 3/4 divided by 1/4 so we don't forget. And then I'm going to go ahead and model 3/4. And remember that each one of those fourths represents 1/4 of a whole. We need 3 of them to represent 3/4. Okay, so now we need to see how many times our second fraction, 1/4, will fit into 3/4. Okay, so I'm going to pull out my 1/4 piece here. And I'm going to think, okay, it fits into 3/4 a total of 1, 2, 3 times. Again, it fits in 1, 2, 3 times exactly. So I can say that 3/4 divided by 1/4 equals 3. And that's it. So let's go ahead and take a picture. And we'll drop that into our notes. Got it. There's a reference. Okay, so remember method 2 is to use an equation. So I'm going to start by writing down my 3/4 divided by 1/4. I can see that I don't have any whole numbers. I don't have any mixed numbers. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to rewrite this problem as a multiplication problem. Our division sign becomes a multiplication. And that second fraction, we're going to find the reciprocal of that fraction. So 1/4, the reciprocal of that would be 4/1. Okay? Now, this is simply a multiplying fractions problem, and you're just going to use that same knowledge that you already have of how to multiply fractions. That's right, it's not going away. Okay, so Hopefully you remember canceling for multiplying fractions. Remember, canceling means we look for factors on the top and the bottom that may have a factor in common. Do you see any? Hopefully you see this 4 and 4 have a common factor of 4. So if I divide them both by 4, my 4's become 1's because 4 divided by 4 is 1. So I'm going to cross off my 4's and circle my new numbers of 1. I don't see any other numbers on the top and bottom with common factors, so I'm going to go ahead and multiply straight across. 3 times 1 is 3. 1 times 1 is 1. And we know that 3 over 1 can be simplified to 3. So we can see that using both methods, I get the same final quotient of 3. Okay, let's move on to our next example. Our next example is 8/12 divided by 1/6. Again, let's start this with modeling. I'm going to swipe over to the virtual manipulatives. And I'm going to start by modeling my first fraction, which in this case is 8/12. Okay. And before I forget, I'm going to go ahead and write down our original problem, which was 8/12 divided by 1/6. Okay? Okay, so now I need to see how many times my second fraction, 1/6, will fit into 8/12. So I'm going to pull out my 1/6 piece and see how many of these I can fit to 8/12. So I'm just going to pull out a bunch because I'm not really sure how many we're going to need. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start matching those up. Aha! And so I can see that 1/6 fits in a total of 4 times. So my answer here is 4. So let's go ahead and take a picture and drop that into GoodNotes. Okay, now let's move on to our second method, which is using an equation. Again, I'm just going to start by writing the problem down, 8/12 divided by 1/6. I can see I don't have any whole numbers and I don't have any mixed numbers. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this as a multiplication problem. 8/12 stays the same. Our division problem becomes multiplication. I'm going to find the reciprocal of 1/6, which is 6 over 1. Okay? Once again, I'm going to look for things that I can cancel. And I see a number on the top and the bottom with a common factor of 6. Do you see them? That's right. 6 and 12 both have a common factor of 6. So if I divide them both by 6, 6 divided by 6 is 1. And 12 divided by 6 is 2. So I'm going to cross off my 6 and 12 and circle my new numbers, which are 1 and 2. Now you can also see that there's actually a second pair of factors here, which are 8 and my new 2. 8 and 2 are both divisible by 2. So if I divide them both by 2, my 8 becomes a 4, and my 2 becomes a 1. So I'm going to cross off my 8 and 2 and write 4 and 1. Now I can go ahead and multiply straight across. 4 times 1 is 4, and 1 times 1 is 1. So I get a quotient of 4 over 1, which I know simplifies to 4. And voila, we can see that using both methods, we get the same final answer. Hope you're starting to get the hang of us.
Okay, let's go ahead and see how much you know after watching part 1 of this video. What is 2/3 divided by 1/3? You may use your virtual manipulatives to help you or try to do this on your own with the division algorithm. Show your answer to your teacher when you're finished and answer the quick Google form note check right after part 1. And then you may move on to part 2 of the video.